Good morning, everybody. This is Cindy again from Ideas Times 2, and it's been a couple of weeks since I've done a tutorial, so I thought it was about time that I did one, especially since I'm in the middle of projects. So this will allow me to get some work done for myself, as well as kind of show you what I'm doing. And this is nothing new. This is not a new technique or anything that is original to me. This project today is going to be a double fold ephemera folder, and this comes from Tracy Fox. I have made a few modifications from her original design, and they work for me. You can give them a try or not. You can check out her videos and see the way that she does it. And I'm guessing this may be a two-parter. And so I'm going to start with the basic construction of the file folder, or of the folder, and we're going to make the folder and folders. And so what you're going to need is basically what I have right here. You'll need two pieces of double-sided cardstock, 12 by 12. And so I'm doing a botanical ephemera folder, so I'm going with just a very neutral green and off-white, and the inside is also neutral. And you want double-sided because you're going to be able to see the inside, and you want fairly thick paper so that your folder has some substance and stability. If you don't have double-sided, you can always glue two pieces together to give yourself a sturdy foundation for this project, or you can add glue like a card or some, a manila file folder or something inside. But this is what I'm going to use today, and I actually did glue two pieces of paper together because even though this was double-sided paper, it just was not sturdy enough. And even two pieces, you can see it's still pretty flexible and pliable. So that's the first thing you need, two pieces of 12 by 12 double-sided paper. For the spine, you are going to need a piece of cardstock that is the height of your folder, and I'm going to do 8.5 inches tall, so mine is 8.5 inches. And I measured this at 4.5 inches. I'm going to have an inch on each side for the fold, and then my spine will be 2.5 inches wide. So this is 4.5 by 8.5, and this is going to be covered, so it does not matter if you have an old piece of scrap paper that you don't care about, you don't know what you're going to use it for. Go ahead and use that and cover it up, or use the ugly paper that you don't know what to do with. So I'm just using this. It's just very plain, and it's going to be covered. It is pretty. It's got this gold, a little bit of metallic gold on here on this side. I really like it, but it's fairly neutral, so I thought I would use this today. And for the outside, you're also going to want a piece of fabric to cover up your paper and to give a little bit more flexibility and stability to your spine. And so you'll want some fabric, some muslin, cotton. The height should be the height of your folder, so mine's 8.5 inches, and I'm going with 4.5 inches so that I have the 2.5 inches for my spine, and then about an inch to go over the edges on each side. So this is just cotton, something fairly neutral, and so this is what you need for the outside. I'm going to add two more pockets, and so I'm going to make gusseted pockets, and so I have a couple pieces of coordinating just plain cardstock, and I'll probably embellish them later. And so my pockets are going to be about 3.5 inches tall by 4.5 inches wide. So I'm leaving my paper's 4 by 5 so that I have room to make the gussets. And so those will be for the pockets. Also, you're going to want maybe a little bit of lace for embellishment. some kind of closure, and so I'm just going to use some coordinating ribbon. And as we work, you'll see, some of the little things that I'm going to do. A little bit of thin lace, some lace to go on the inside, or cheesecloth. But pretty much you should have everything in your stash to complete this project. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to move these off to the side. And I'm going to get out my scoreboard, and I'm going to score my paper at, this is 12 inches, and I want my book to be 8.5 inches tall. So I am going to put a score mark at 3.5, and this will when I fold it over, it will be a pocket. And I'm also going to score it again at the 6-inch mark. And just put the line, and the line can go all the way down. So to fold it in, I'm going to fold it in half, so I have a score mark at the 6 inches, and I'm going to fold this up, fold it up on the bottom to make pockets. So I put a score mark at 3.5 inches, and I'm going to do the same thing with my other sheet of paper. I'm going to put a score at 3.5 inches. And I'm going over it a couple of times. Since I glued pieces of paper together, I wanted to make sure it goes all the way through. And then I'm going to flip it and do another score mark at 6 inches on both sheets. So get that out of the way, put it back in its slot. So this is the outside of my paper, and the insides don't match, but I think they're coordinated enough, and they match the ephemera I'm going to put in here. So you can fold it up from the bottom, fold it this way, and basically you're just making a file folder, right? You can use your bone folder to give that a little extra crease. And you're going to do the same thing on the other sheet. I always fold the bottom up first. Go over it with a bone folder and try to get those edges crisp. Okay, so this is the basic folder, and I am going to get my paper cutter, and what I'm going to do is on this edge, the outside edge of both pieces, I'm going to trim just a tiny little bit off. Probably not even 1/8 of an inch. And let's see if I can get that off. I have to grab my scissors. And the reason that I do this is so that when it's full and it's folded, and both pieces are together and it folds this way, that it doesn't get caught up there in the middle. So I'm going to do that on this one as well, and that's the outside edge. And I'm sure that's, my paper cutter is too dull to go all the way through, but I'm going to take about 1/8 of an inch, a little less than 1/8 of an inch, and just trim that off. And I've got to use my scissors. And I always do it at this stage because otherwise I would trim the wrong side. And so you can see it is just that little extra just trimmed off right here. So when it's attached and we close it, it just doesn't get bound up on the inside. So I don't think I need that again. So put that off to the side, clean up some of my little paper scraps. Okay. Usually now at this point, I do something a little different. This is where I deviate from Tracy Fox, and I cut a little notch right here, angled from maybe 1/4 of an inch from the top of the pocket at an angle down to the center of the crease. And I do that just because when the pockets get full, it's a little bit more difficult to keep things contained. So I generally just eyeball it. But like I said, maybe 1/4 of an inch or 1/3 of an inch, just at a gentle angle right down to that center of the fold, so that it looks like this. And you can fussy cut that, make sure that everything is neat and tidy. You can use your ruler. I generally don't worry about the ruler too much. So I always do that here, and then on the other one as well, about the same distance, 1/4 of an inch to 1/3 of an inch at just a gentle angle down to the center of the pocket. Just like that. And I'll clean that up a little later. So this is basic construction of the folders themselves. So now what we need to do is make the spine, and I do need my bone folder again. I'm going to move these off to the side. And my scoreboard. And so I cut this at 4.5 inches, so I'm going to go 1 inch from the right. So at 3.5 inches, I'm going to do a score, and at 1 inch, I'm going to do a score. So that's 1 inch on each side. And then it will give me 2.5 inches for the spine of the folder. I have a tendency to really fill them up, so I do about 2.5 inches. But because this is your craft and you get to decide what you want to do, if you want it a little smaller, do a 2-inch spine, that's fine, or a 1.5. I probably won't do smaller than 1.5, but that is up to you. So that's the next step. Your paper should be the height of your folder. Mine was 8.5 inches, so this is 8.5 inches, and the width is 4.5 inches, so that I have 1 inch on each side to glue to the folders. Whoops. So that is my next step. Okay, to remember which side I trimmed the edges on. So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of glue on here and a little bit of glue on here, and I'm going to glue it down like this, right? And that will give us a nice sturdy spine. And for this I'm using Fabri-Tac because it dries fast. If I can get it to come out of the bottle, it's a brand new bottle. It dries fast and it's really strong, but still gives you a little bit of time if you need to move things. And because it is not water-based, I can't tell how much is on there. Because it's not water-based, it won't wrinkle the paper. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And glue it down right at the crease. Okay, so there you go. That is the basic construction. You can see this one's going to be pretty wide, that 2.5 inches. I wanted to make sure that I have plenty of room for all the stuff I'm going to stuff in there. And so when you get to this stage, you have a couple of decisions to make. If you would like to, get out your ink and dauber and do your edges, this is when I do it, and I usually make sure that I do the sides, because sometimes your cardstock sometimes cracks a little bit, and the ink can hide a lot of mistakes or a lot of little problems. And so I always do my edges, and might do a little bit in the corners. I'm not going to over ink it, especially on camera, but I like a little bit of grunge. And if you don't want a grungy, you don't want ink on there, don't put it on. That's up to you. And I'm going to sew a zigzag stitch around the whole folder, and starting here, go all the way around. And I'm going to do the bottom as well, just to give it a little uniformity on the outside. And I'm going to not do that on camera because you don't want to watch me do that. So I will be back in just a couple minutes as soon as I give this a little stitch. All right, so I am back, and you can see I have moved on ahead, and the reason for that is because I accidentally filmed the second half of today's video in time lapse. I've done that before, but once the camera is up, it's really hard to see, and I hit the wrong button. So what I did, I'll just show you what I did. So on the inside, to reinforce the spine, I used a piece of 8.5 by 2.5 inch wide cardstock, and I put that down the center so that it would give a little bit more sturdiness to the spine. Oh, excuse me, madam. Thank you. It's my cat Lizzie. And on top of that extra piece of cardstock, I put some cheesecloth, and then covered it with some fabric just to cover up the extra paper. And I will put another bead of glue down the side, but you can see I put a little bit more cardstock, and then there's the cheesecloth, and then the fabric over the top. So now the inside is done, except for maybe some embellishing. And so I have some little lace here. I think I'll put on the pockets. I'm not sure if I have enough for all 4 of the inside pockets. So I'll have to dig around in the bag for that. But I think I'm going to put some lace on the pockets. And then I put 2 pockets here, gusseted pockets. And I'm sure most of you are old hands at that, but if you're not, if you don't know how to do a gusseted pocket, I thought I would take just a couple of minutes to show you how I do that. And I don't know if there are other methods, but this is what works for me. And so the pockets that I put on the inside of the folder, I cut 2 pieces of cardstock that was 5 inches wide and 4 inches tall. And the piece I'm going to use now is a little smaller. It's about 3.5 by maybe, I don't know, 4.5, 3.5 by 4.5, and that's not a bad size for a pocket either. So I'll move that out of the way, and using my scoreboard, I'm going to score a line about 1/4 inch on the bottom and 1/4 inch from the right side. And I'm going to flip that over so it's a little easier to see what I'm doing. And another 1/4 inch on this side. And it gives you a line here, and you can see they cross down here on the bottom, right? So what I'm going to do is just cut at a diagonal at each of the bottom corners. I'm going to do a little notch there on the top, like that. And then I want to have a little thumb notch, and I'm going to use my little circle cutter here, and I always do it upside down so I can see what I'm doing, and just cut a little notch out there. So if you want to distress your pocket, this is when you would do it, before you glue it on. And I always like to distress, especially at the thumb notch, because that's where it's going to distress naturally, right? So you can fold your edges down, and distress around the edges. And the pockets on the inside of the folder I just made, I'm going to probably do a little collage or something on there, or put a quote. I don't know, I haven't decided yet, but I want to put something on there so that it's not just plain. And when you, that's all it takes to do a gusseted pocket. So then you just want to glue on the tabs that we made and glue that down, and that will give you a pocket that has a little extra room for putting ephemera in. So if we hadn't done the gussets on there, once the folder was full, you would be really hard pressed to even get a piece of paper in there. So that's why I like to do the gussets. So the last thing that I did when I was moving at lightning speed was to add the closure. And for this one I did a ribbon closure. And so my ribbon is approximately 24 inches long, and I have two pieces, and I glued them here to the side of the folder, and then put a button on the top. And I just used my a pair of pliers to remove the back of the button so it would lay flat. And that is the folder. And so when I tie it, I can tie the bow nice and neat here on the front, maybe. And once I get it full of stuff, I will trim the edges to make sure everything is neat and the right length. And I have been working already on filling the folder, so I have a ton of ephemera already, and I've made a little bifold tag, and it has a little notebook here and a pocket with a little collage tag, and that's going to go in here, and a collaged window envelope. I can't remember what bill came in this, but if you're still going to get your bills in the snail mail, you might as well use those envelopes for something, right? And some tags and some cards, and I can slip some of those in there. And because they're gusseted, they will hold a bunch of stuff. Hey, Lizzie. And all sorts of things. And by the time I'm done, this will be full with, I don't know, gosh, 35, 40 pieces of ephemera. And I'll be putting this in our Etsy shop when it's all done. And so there you go. A simple file folder a la Tracy Fox. So thank you to Tracy for the inspiration, and I hope she doesn't mind that I made a couple changes and modifications based on my experience making them. I think the gusseted pockets work a little better, and having the notch here on these pockets just makes everything fit a little better. So give it a try if you need a place to store your ephemera, or if you're looking for an easy gift to make for somebody and you have all the stuff in your stash. Give this a try. So thank you so much for watching. It's a beautiful Saturday, so I hope you get outside and enjoy the weather. Here in Virginia, it's actually not raining for a change. It's a little breezy, but it's a beautiful day. I'm going to go outside and work in my garden. So thank you so much for watching my tutorial today, and I'm sorry that I messed up on my little time-lapse issue. But hopefully you got the gist. If you're an experienced crafter, you didn't need my tutorial anyway. But thank you so much for watching, and have a fantastic day. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. We are so appreciative of all of our subscribers and all of you who watch our videos. And check out our Etsy shop. If you're in the market for a Father's Day journal, my sister Betsy made some beautiful journals using vintage men's ties, and the links are below. ideastimes2.com is our blog, and thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.